All right, guys. Thank you very much, Amaka. Okay, so I believe we can see my screen and I believe you can hear me. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me so we can kick off already. Okay. All right. So if you can hear me and you can see my screen, let me know in the chat. For those of us watching from YouTube, let me know so we can start. All right. I think yeah, Butch Tech loud and clear. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to be looking at a Vue router today, and we're going to be trying a couple of examples, as well as experimenting with some other things in Vue, if we have enough time, of course. So I want us to, take out time to practice, do some practice today, right? I'm sure most of us already know what Vue router is, at least from our previous sessions. I've mentioned that before. So we're going to be looking at that, basically how to perform, routing using Vue, right? Yeah. So since you can see my screen, I'll go ahead and pull up a new. Let's create a new project. Of course, I do have one here, but I'll prefer to, create a new one so that you guys can also watch me do that. Okay. So let's clear this. Go back one step, and we're simply going to run the command. Let's see, npm create view at latest. So I'm sure you can't see this very well, so I'm going to zoom in, make it very bold. Okay, right. I think this is, yeah, I think this works. Okay, so I'm sure you can see this very well. If you can't see it, yeah, do well to let me know. Okay, nice. All right, so I am going to run the command. I have that command right here for creating a new Vue project. Remember, you can simply pick up this command from the official documentation. If you simply navigate to vuejs.org, you click on Quick Start, you can see you can simply run this command, npm create view at latest. That is if you're using npm. If you're using pnpm, yarn, or bon, it has its own set of commands, right? This is going to whip up a Vue JS 3, right? A Vue 3 application, right? So let's go ahead and run this right here. We are going to set the name of the project. So I'm going to call this Vue Router Project, okay? So the package name Vue Router Project. We don't need TypeScript or JSX support for now. So it's asking if we need Vue Router for a single page application development. I'm going to click on yes. We don't need Pinia for state management. We don't need vtest for now. We don't need any of this for now, okay? So let's dive into the folder that we have created by simply navigating into cd Vue router projects, okay? And we are simply going to run the following command so we can have the packages installed. At least we can have Vue router installed. If I run the command ls here to see what I have in the directory, or if I open this up in Finder or Explorer, you see we don't have node modules here. That is because we haven't performed the installation, right? When we perform npm install, we're going to have node modules listed among this set of items. That is to show that you have installed the node packages that would make your application function. Okay, hope that makes sense. If you check out the package.json file, you see we currently have Vite, we have Vue router, we have Vue. Now this is currently listed in the package.json file, but the packages are yet to be installed. So of course, you simply have to run npm install, or simply use the short form npm I, which stands for install, right? So this is going to install those packages that you just saw in the package.json file before we run our application. All right. So I'm going to look at the charts because I expect you guys to have. Someone said we have enough time. All right. So let's. Okay. So now we have installed the packages. If I run the command ls, now you see we have node modules as I mentioned. Of course, if I also open it up here, you see we now have node modules that contains the set of packages that we have installed to make our application function. So we can now proceed to open this up in our code editor. You can use your preferred code editor, right? I am using Z, but you can of course use VS Code um, by simply using code dot. So dot here basically represents the directory I want to open up in VS Code. By the way, you don't need to do all this. You can of course come down to your Explorer, right? If that is what you're familiar with, you can simply open the folder here and drag it into VS Code, okay? If that is what you are familiar with. All right, so that's just to give you an alternative way to open your application. This is our application right here. The source directory simply has the app.vue file. It's a new project, so we just have the button will come along with you creating. That makes sense, okay? And yeah, so we can simply run our application from here, or we can choose to run our application from here. So let's do npm run dev. Now remember, the dev means the dev is taken from the file here, dev, right, which is going to execute Vite. Okay, I've mentioned that several times, but I always like to emphasize on these things so that it will be easy for you to spin up a project without having difficulties understanding what is actually happening behind the scenes. So yeah, let's go ahead and run this now. This would execute our program, and we can start experimenting with Vue router. Okay, all right, so this is currently running our project. Wait for a while so you can see this is currently running on port 5173. So we can simply pick this up, take this to our browser. We have our browser right here. I'm going to drop that link. So we have our new application. Now this is what I'm going to do. Let's move this to a separate yeah, so we can simply navigate from our code editor to the browser window. Okay, all right, so let's take a look at a couple of things on the Vue router page. I'm going to drop this link in the chat so you can save that. You can add it to your bookmarks or something. Yeah, so we have that in the chat right now. For those of you watching from LinkedIn, I don't know if I doubt if this message will go to LinkedIn. So you probably have to get this link, I guess, from the WhatsApp group or the Discord server after the call. Please drop a reminder if you need some of these links that we share here. Okay, let us know in the chats. Thank you. All right, so let's go back to the first page. So you see Vue router is the official router for Vue.js. So when we say router, what exactly do we mean? Okay, so of course I would always love to start with an excalibur diagram, at least to describe what this is. Okay, when you're working on a website, let's take that off. When you're working on a website, so you have your web page. So this is your web page. It's an assumption here. You have your web page. You have your navigation menu, for example. You have the main working area. Let's put that here. Let's say the main, probably like an article tag or your main tag, containing a couple of things that you're presenting on the screen. And maybe you have a side menu. So this is just your typical dashboard design, right? Okay. Yeah, so this is what we have right now. You probably have plans to navigate to multiple pages. So the first page we have here is probably the dashboard, right? The dashboard. Have I forgotten how to spell? Okay, so we have the dashboard, and you probably also have a profile page. So I'm going to give my example with two pages, the dashboard page and then the profile page. Now, of course, you have something different for your profile page, right? So let's assume that your profile page looks something like this. Of course, with your profile picture somewhere here. All right, just a simple assumption. You have the profile page, you have the dashboard page. Now, within your code, by default, you probably land on let's assume by default you land on the home page. Okay, so you land on the home page. We don't have the home page on this diagram, by the way. But then when you land on the home page, you are going to, you're going to sign in. You want to perform that sign in action. So you probably want to navigate to the sign in page, right? Okay, so you want to navigate to the sign in page, right? Let's assume you also call that the sign-in page. Along the side, you also have the login page, so the sign-up page, right? So you might get to the sign-in page and you don't have an account. You probably want to create an account. So now you're beginning to see the chain here. Okay, so these are basically what we refer to your routes. and you need a router to be able to perform this. Now you can actually just use your a tag, right? You can just use your a tag. Some of you, yeah, please, Anikan, right? Sorry if I don't pronounce your name well. You can drop this message in the WhatsApp group so that I get that notification after the call. Okay, after the call, drop it there so I can share this with you. Thank you. All right, so now we have the home page, pointing to our sign-in page, because we'll probably have the login button or the sign-up button on that home page. Okay, as I said earlier, you can use your a tag, but when you're working with Vue, what you're basically building with this what you're basically building is a single page application. We'll call that an SPA. There are other, meta frameworks that we can use for building a server-side rendered application. We're not going to dive into that detail for now, but you're building a single page, and with Vue router, you can basically perform routing on that particular page. Now it looks like you're navigating to multiple pages, which of course Vue router helps us. It gives us that experience, right? Now you can of course use your a tag, but then when using Vue router, you don't necessarily need to refresh the page, like load the page again, compared to using the a tag. It simply takes you to that page super fast, super clean, and yeah, I mean, you don't have to wait to refresh the entire page again. Okay, so yes, we have sign in, sign up from the home page. You also probably have when you sign in, you then want to get to a dashboard. So these are different pages you've probably built. It might be modals, but I'm giving an assumption with pages, which are views, right? What we call views in Vue.js. If you remember, when we take a look at the code here, you see we have views, right? Okay. I usually prefer to, call them pages. I usually prefer to rename this to pages, right? As a clear way to have developers that I work with understand that these are the different pages. But at the end of the day, what it actually is in Vue, they're called views, because when you are rendering this, if you use the Vue router, you are simply going to be rendering everything on a single page. That's why it's called the single page application. And you have Vue router performing that change of layout, or change of components, or change of views, basically. Okay, hope that makes sense. When you sign in, or maybe when you even sign up, you want to get to the dashboard, which is a different page. Now this is the, what am I spelling, dashboard? Okay, so this is that page right here. Now the arrows here is because I have the buttons, right, to perform that sign in action or sign up action. Okay, so I hope that doesn't confuse anybody here. Now when you have signed up, I think it's better I have this image on the side so I can simply scroll. Okay, so when you have signed up, you probably have a page, maybe like dashboard slash I don't know, maybe app slash dashboard. Okay, you have an app slash dashboard slash overview, stuff like this. Okay, yeah, so you have this, which is closely tied to your dashboard. You also have maybe something like app slash profile, or dashboard slash profile, whatever you choose, however you choose to better organize your pages. So now you're seeing we're beginning to have a flow, and we understand where these actions are being triggered from. But then you begin to see a lot of what we would probably call our paths, our paths, right? PATH. So you're beginning to see a couple of paths here. Okay, so we have app slash dashboard slash overview. We have app slash dashboard. So at least this is clearly seen to be a parent component, or a parent, page, right? Or a parent route. So at least we can see this is a parent route, and this is, a child route. Okay. So for some reasons, this is, yeah, I mean, this is clearly stated to be a child of dashboard, which means you probably have to get to dashboard first before you click on a button that takes you to profile, right? Not compulsory that you go through that route, or that that process, that flow. But the idea is, if I create profile as a sub of dashboard, it makes good sense that my coding, or my design, or my routing actually follows that practice, right? So that if I hand this over to a different developer, it will be easy for them to actually understand, the flow of my project, or the flow of my website. Okay. Now, when using Vue router, this actually makes it easy for you, because we can simply say, router link. Using Vue router, we can simply say router link. I want you to take us to a specific, page. right? We can reference the we can reference the name of that particular link, just like what we have in the code here. So if you take a look at this, you see we have router link to the base. So this takes us to the base page. Router link to about. This takes us to the about page or the about view, right? So you see we have the home view, the about view. So when you hear me say view, I'm basically referring to page, right? That's what I call it here. But ideally they are known as views. Okay, if I go back to the browser just to test this, so this is what we have here. If I click on about, you to render this section without having to take this off, right? We're able, when I click on home, we're able to render this. It takes us back home, right? So this is the nav. If I take off the nav, of course, you're going to notice that that nav is gone. I have to probably refresh first. So let's refresh. So now you see that nav is gone. All right. If I bring back the nav, so you see the nav is right here. We have it back. Click on about. About basically renders renders that particular that particular view. So how do we get to see that view? Let's take a look at it here. So this is the about view. This is the content of the about view. So if I go back here, you see we only have the about. This is the about page. Let's just add a little bit of detail. Let's make it look like a profile. So H1, I have Marvelous Solomon. Okay, so that is my H1. I have to close that properly. Okay, so I have maybe the P. So let's just say email. This is a name or something. All right, email. Probably have me at mav.com. Let's close the P tag. All right, and yeah, finally we can just include another P and we call this job role, for example. So let's say software engineer. Okay. All right, so we have P closed up there. So now you see we have the name, we have the email, we have the job. So I think for some reasons our class of about we can probably style this to be. I mean, we can change the style. Let's not bother ourselves for now. We'll come back to this. Okay. So now you see we have this item presented here. If I go back to home, we also have those. We also have that initial set of detail we have in the home page. So in the home page, you see we did not actually create, this component, right? It came with, Vue by default when we set up this application. So you see we have some components here. We all we had to do was import that component and then render that component. So you can always check back to see the component. This is the detail of the component. Everything you see on that page, we have that right here. This project is served and bundled with. Of course, you can see that as well here. This project is served and bundled with. So we can actually delete those things, and we understand that these views are basically rendered here. Let's try to look at how router view performs that rendering. So first off, in the app.view, we call those routes slash and slash about. Okay. Now let's go to the router view and let's go to the router itself, right? In this file, router slash index.js. So because we have index.js, of course, we don't need to specify this when we import, Vue router into our project. Now, by default, we're seeing this here because when we created our project, we told the CLI that we want router view. So it was able to spin this up, right? It was able to spin this up, spin up this boilerplate basically. If you did not install this when you started working on your project, you have to do that manually, right? I always love to show that because some of us might, have a hard time trying to set that up manually. So if you check the website, you will see how to include. Let's click on Get Started, right? So you'll see how to basically include Vue Router, okay? So this is the package right here, npm install Vue Router, all right? So you first create a project, of course, and then you install Vue Router. If I did not install, Vue Router automatically during my setup, I have to do this, manually. If you are using a CDN, you see you have the option of using the CDN right here, Vue Router, okay? So if you're working with a CDN, then yes, you can also use Vue Router as a CDN. Okay. If you're not using a CDN, then of course you want to go with this option. All right. So after installing that, you want to do some, fundamental setup, right? You want to simply go into your main.js file, okay? you want to basically import router from, this is our router file. All right, this is our router file. So you say import router, that is this file we've created here. So when we say dot slash router, this is also the same as router slash index.js, okay? So long you have index.js as the main file you're working with, you don't necessarily need to, show that. It automatically picks up, it is smart enough to understand that you are trying to utilize the index.js file. It picks it up as the default. Hope that makes sense, okay? And after importing that router, we then go ahead to say app.use router. Now, we have not seen the content of the router file itself, but you need to set this up in your main.js file so that Vue can identify that you have a router, okay? And it can work with that router file. Hope that makes sense, guys. All right, so let's go into index.js. Let's see what the router file actually looks like. All right, so first you see we have import create router and create web history from Vue router. Now we are using this option here. Let's go back to, yeah, let's come back here. So we're using that option because we're trying to avoid using, if I can remember what it's called clearly, I think we have a pattern called a hash. Maybe I'll get back to that. I'll circle back to that so I can make sure I don't make a mistake with what I say, okay? But we are basically using the history, option. Back in Vue 2, we have hash and we have history, right? And this is the default, as you can see, after creating it, so that you don't end up seeing, some of those web links that shows up, with the hash signed this way, right? It is not necessary to actually keep that as a default. If you have your Vue router showing up hash, you can simply change it to the history, right? The history option, and you don't need to have that, tailed, hash sign showing on your routes. Okay, so this is what we have here, and you see we have to import the home view. I don't know. All right, so guys, I noticed I went off for a while. Correct? How many of you can still hear me? Please let me know in the chat if you can still hear me. I noticed I went off for a while. Um, if you can hear me, Christophobe, Watch Tech, let me know in the chats. If you can hear me, let me know in the chat. I'm waiting for a message so I can proceed. All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so now we have all right, thank you. So now we have our view. All right, let's go back here. So you see, this is how we basically initialize our router. So we have const router. By the way, this is the router that we had imported into the main.js file. Okay, so this is where we created the router. So we use the create router function that we have brought in from Vue router. That is what we basically use in creating our router. Okay, so we use the history part here, the history type here, or the history option, and this is where we basically define our routes. Okay, so these are the routes we have, and of course you can define as many routes as you're working with in your project. Oh, okay, someone said it was smooth on LinkedIn. All right. I noticed from my end that there was a glitch, so I was thinking maybe you guys could not hear me at some point. Okay, so now you see we have the route. This is where we define the route. You can call this routes. A lot of people call it routes. A lot of people call it routes. I remember working with engineers, some a set of the engineers will call this routes. Some will call it routes. Either of them is fine. Okay, don't laugh at me. All right, so we have the routes here. You see, we have the parts, and this is the base part. Okay, so this is the base part. This part is going to render that component home view. All right, and that was the component we have here. If we go ahead to create a new component, let's do that. So we go ignore that a component, which basically it is, but let's refer to that as a view because we have it in the view section. All right. So if I click on new file, so if I click on new file, Let's do that. I'm going to call this profile. Let's call this profile view. Okay, so profile view.view. By the way, you don't necessarily need to include the view. All right, it can just be profile.view. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's call this profile.view. So this is more like going to give us a profile page. I'm going to create a simple block of code here. So let's have our templates. Let's have what we call main. All right, and in here we're going to have I think we can just have profile, right? So let's start with the h1. This would contain our name, all right? So we'll have p, senior solutions architects, all right? So and we also have I think maybe yeah. So sorry. I think I was having a network issue. I'm going to repeat some of the things I said already. I hope you guys can still hear me. Please let me know in the chat. It's from my end. So I will share my screen and we'll take it again. Okay. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me now. All right. Okay. We can hear and see you again on LinkedIn. Nice. Let me go ahead and share my screen now. Apologies for that. I'm going to share my entire screen again so we can continue. Um, yeah. All right. I hope you can see my screen now, and I hope this is much better. So the last thing I did was I created a profile page. Or I created this. I call it a page, but yeah. By the way, okay, page or view, whatever you choose to call it. By default, it's referred to as a view. So I created this, profile view, right? And I have my H1. I have the. Uh, Someone said I can't hear anything. Just to confirm, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Sorry, please. Can you hear me? The last message I can see here says I can't hear anything. Can you hear me now? Okay. I think you guys can hear me very clear. All right. Apologies. Let's continue. So I created a view here. I have my H1. I have the P tag, and I also have a bit of styling here, right? For that particular page. Am I making a mistake here? I think I've corrected that. Okay. All right. So I created that view, and I simply want to render that view within my app.view. I can simply say, okay, the router view, this nav is going to contain the router linking us to profile, right? Because I want file, right? In my router file, I'm going to just put on the. If I click on profile, nothing is rendered, right? I have not defined that actually, so we don't get to see anything here. Now, when that item is rendered, it is being rendered in a section we call the router view. So this is the router view. This is the exact section where all these items are being rendered. Of course, I'm sure you saw what the layout actually looks like. Okay, so it's side by side. We have the header. This side is the header. What we have here is the header, right? You can take off some of those items so you can see and understand that better. So if I take this off, I also take off this hello world component, or I can comment on that hello world component. If I save, you see that this is gone, right? The home, the about, and the profile. All right. So that is all we have for now. That's all we have for now. Let us go ahead bring that back in. You see, we have, you did it. Now, this is basically what you have in the hello world, component that has a message prop, okay, saying you did it, okay. Now, these are the router items. When I clicked on profile, nothing was rendered. So I have to go back into the router file. Let's start by importing, let's import the profile view. So I can say profile view. Now you see one thing, even though I did not say profile view, I can also call this profile view during my imports, right? And I can just set the name of the file itself, which is profile. I can call this map view, right? I can call this, top universe, whatever I choose to do, whatever I choose to call it. Let's just keep, profile view in there for now. Now that I have imported the profile view, I have to add the profile view to a route, okay? So I have to, add the profile view to a route. So I have to define the route. Let's go in here, define the new route. Let's call it profile. When we call the profile, we set the components that we're bringing in here, which is the Vue profile view. Now I can have also here like maybe route profile page to work. Okay, remember I have see we don't have anything, right? We have slash profile page, nothing is rendered here. Okay, if I take this back and I fix it because it's actually profile. Let's also take this off, refresh this page. Okay, so if I go to profile now, you see we have that information, Solomon and the role. Okay, I think yeah, probably need to put this in a div because I actually, my styling, yeah, let's put this in a div and save that. So yeah, so now you see we basically have that information show up here. All right, this is how we're able to navigate into multiple views, right, which you might also refer to as pages, depending on how you structure your page. Now we are going to try this one more time. I am going to take off all the view we have here because I want you to actually watch me create this from the very first view down to the last view. Hope that makes sense. That is what you're going to find yourself doing. So let's build a simple portfolio. Okay, let's delete some of these things. Now we have some advanced, things that you need to understand about working with views and working with Vue router. I'm going to mention some of them. Talking about things like nested routes and working with route params, right? So we're going to mention some of them. But before that, it will take us about maybe 10 to 15 minutes to simply to simply rebuild this. So I'm going to have an index view right here. So let's call this the index view. Okay. I am going to take off some of these pages and components. All right. So in the app.view, we are going to basically render one thing, which is the navigation component. Okay. So we're going to render the navigation components, navigation. All right. So let's also call that navigation. So we're going to have a navigation component Okay, so this happened again. Apologies, guys. I really apologize for that. I don't know, but I think I'm having some issues here with both my home internet and my regular Airtel and MTN networks. So it's quite weird that they're both acting up. But let's try this one more time. Okay, let's try this one more time. I'm going to share my screen again, and I hope this doesn't repeat itself. I just switched to a different provider. Yeah, apologies. Okay, so I'm going to take this up again, right? What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to show you a practical example of what you would find yourself doing. You're trying to create a simple portfolio project, for example, or you're trying to build some application, some dashboard, right? Let's just spin up some components and some pages. So we're going to create two components here, the navigation and the footer, real quick, okay? So templates, I hope you can see my screen and I hope you can hear me clearly. All right, so I'm going to have a div here, another div, all right? And of course, you can probably just call this nav, okay? So you can just call this nav. So let's drop this, router links in here and within my style, scopes, style. Okay, so within the style, I'm simply going to have nav. So let's say display of flex. All right, so kind of wrap. If we get to wrap, we have gap maybe 30 px. Okay, and we have justify content setup. All right, so this is basically what our nav would look like. Let's come back to the app.view. We're rendering the navigation. So I also want to render this, the router view in here. I don't need the header here. Probably have to use the header in a different place. So let's just call this the main page. Maybe I can just take this off and call this main. Yeah, we're going to have some styling issue because our default, our base styling, is not our base styling has some body and font color and all that. So we'll probably need to go into assets, go into main.css, and maybe change a couple of things from here, right? So let us see what we can change here. We don't need all this background color and the rest. So let's take everything we have here off, right? And we probably can keep this. I believe we can keep this. So let's simply say we have main of I'm going to say margin 0 auto, and I'll simply say width give us a 80%. All right, so I hope this is fine. That's our main. Let's see what we have in the base.css just to make sure it doesn't affect our work. So we have a couple of things here, I believe, including fonts, right? I can see we have a lot of fonts in here. We are simply going to stick to that default font family that we have, being min height with either. So take off this guy down to the top. Our page currently looks. Yeah, we do have an error. One of the tags we used in our components. Okay, so we did not. We have included that now. Let's just refresh this page. You'll see what we have. So this is empty, right? This is empty. Yeah, so this is empty. Let's go into our views, the index.view. We have to go into the router here and make sure we are rendering the home view, right? Which is what we have called the index.view. So let's simply change this to index view. All right, change this to index. Currently don't have a profile view. Okay, so we can gladly, take this off. And I also want to explain something about what we call the lazy loaded components. But so the component itself would come back into our page. Now we can see what we have: home, about, and profile. Right? Yes, we have we have some details there. We need to take that off as well. Let's go back into the app.view. All right. So yeah, we can take off these guys. We can take off nav. Okay, so we have a lot of things here that we're not using, right, in the app.view. I don't like to, have styles in my app.view, except I want to put some styling that should affect to use that myself. Within our router view, remember that we actually have, we're presenting a certain item. So let's go back into index.js. We're now presenting the index view. Okay. Now, what exactly do we have in the index view? Let's take a look at that. Okay. In the index view, we are putting that is what you're seeing here. All right. So this is what we're going to do now. Remember, I said we're building something basic and I'm trying to be fast here. So I'm going to take off main. Okay. I'm taking off main because I want to have the definition for main within our app.view. All right. Let's just see how do let's see. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Let's go back to that page. So this is the index.view. Let's go back to the app.view. I was trying to do something here. Okay, so now we have the main. So the main is basically what we are using to set the boundaries of our page, right? And we have the router view. So the router view now is picking up the main index view. So within the index view, we can now have, let's assume we have more components. So we are defining our page with components. I'm going to create a folder and I'm going to call this maybe components, components like that. I have portfolio.view. Now, of course, when you're creating components, try as much as possible to create components that are reusable. So the assumption here is that these components should eventually be reusable. Okay. In this example, it is not going to be reusable. Okay. We're not actually putting in props and all that, but yeah, they are called components and we're putting them in the component folder because we want to reuse them. Okay. Yeah. So let's go ahead and have a div, another div. Okay, within this div, I can simply say this is the header. Maybe that should be an H1. Let's just say this is the, or this is our header. Oh yeah, let's make it welcome to my website. Okay, can't spell today. I don't know. I think I'm really hungry already. So website. All right, so we have H1 there. Now this is meant to be like some header, so I'm going to just call this maybe like an hero section scopes style. So hero, let's style the hero. Say height of 600 px. And by the way, this is just coming into my head. So whatever it looks like, let's try to manage it. Okay. So background color. I'm simply going to use black. I can't remember any. Okay, yeah, I think I know one color code: 1E1E1E. So this is the hero. We have, yeah. So we can simply say margin, or we can simply say display grid, place items, place item. I think it's place items, right? Center. Okay, so now we have this hero. We can simply go into the index, and of course, what we are going to do is we want to import, right? So similarly to the way we imported, this item under the script section, right? I can simply grab this. Okay, I can simply grab that into my my index page, right? And we can just import the hero. Let's call it the hero. Okay. I called it header here, so I think it's also fine if we call it headings slash probably start with cap. So this is the header. Starting with it here now. If okay, not the error. So it said fail to resolve import. Um, okay, so it's asking if this particular file exists. Okay, so components, home components. Are we making a mistake in the spelling? Let's check it out. Let's see. Components, home components. Correct. Yeah, let's check that out. Home components, header, dot view. What are we missing here? Components. Okay. Home components. That looks correct to me. All right, let's try to refresh this again. Sometimes this can actually give you some errors. So we're still having that error from our terminal here as well. Probably because we have that in the folder. So what if I do this? Just give me a second. So I move this into the base header. All right, I go back into index.view. So let's try. So let's save that. Okay. So I just saved it, and we still have the same error. Oh, I get it. Sorry, my path. Okay. It was a path error, so I believe we have to go back, or we have to come out one step. The path error. Let's go ahead and refresh this one more time. Let's see what we have. So we have the correct representation here. All right. So just to clarify, it was a path error. So now we can move it back into the right location, which is home component. Home component. Why did I define home components? I'm trying to have a clear way to separate this. So if I'm going to have a different page, maybe about components, I have some set of components in the about page or the about view. I can actually group this in that folder. So it makes sense to say components in the home components folder belongs to the home page or the home view. The components in the about components folder belongs to the about view. All right. So hope that makes sense. So now we have components slash home components slash the header. Okay. Save that one more time and make sure it's working. All right. So if we go into the header, as you can see, some things were not very organized. So I'm just going to say margin top 2 em and probably reduce the size as well to 400. Let us also make sure you write your CSS styling very well. Okay, so let's just say also this is going to give us a color of white. Now the hero, that particular component rendered here, the header is rendered here, and of course you can now proceed to add the other components that you have. Okay, I am going to create one more component just to make sure. Let's call this footer.view, and in the footer.view, we'll probably want to have the templates first. Okay, templates. All right, so we have the style, scope. So when I scope this, it means my styling will not affect any other file, but it's just going to be limited to the content of this specific page. Right. So now let's have the footer. Okay. And I'm going to style my footer, so I can simply start by saying the footer has a position of relative. Does that make sense? Relative. I don't know. Maybe I would have used some stick that to the bottom of the page. It depends on your code base. You have to always. This can be tricky, but yeah, we just want to have like a height. I just want to do something very basic here, right? Very basic. Maybe I can use a padding instead. Padding of maybe 20 or 30 px. Okay, and yeah, so I'm simply going to say give me a width of 100%. I'll probably add some color, background color black. So I'm going to have footer p. So within our footer, we're going to have the p tag that says this is the footer. Okay. All right. So this is what we have right here, and let's save that. So we have the footer. What else are we looking at? The text. So text align center. That's if that is actually correct. So let's see if that text is actually set. So let's say bottom is 0. Okay, I think that's how it's done. This is probably okay. So we probably have to refresh. Is either this actually worked or I just cooked hot beans like my team one of my team leads would say. All right, so I think I practically just prepared very. All right, so this is crazy. Now let's just do relative. I mean, I can't. What do we have? Refresh that page. Oh, we haven't imported that component just yet. All right, so that was very stupid of me. Let's go back into our index.view page, right? We have to also import. Maybe we can do that in the app.view since we have navigation here. So we can simply bring in the footer. Okay, so let's copy, let's paste footer, and here we're going to have the footer. All right, so let's save that. Let us see what we have. Okay, so this basically this is within, for some reasons this is not actually sticky as I wanted it to be, right? So we can still fix that, right? We can still fix that. You just have to go into the footer page. Yeah, I mean, I was hoping that that would work with sticky. Yeah, that's weird because obviously, even if I use absolutes, this is not going to give me exactly what I want. By the time I start adding some details here, it is not going. This is not going to move, right? This is kind of, I believe, stock. But no issues. We can always make that adjustment later. Now you are seeing that we are able to have multiple items on this page. So let's go ahead and apply Vue Router. I am simply going to create a page, right? So right here, we are going to create a new file, and I can call this our profile, right? .view. Okay. So now we have the profile.view. Let's put in some templates in here, templates. All right, and we're simply going to have let's have our div class, call this profile. Okay, so we have the h1 with the name. Let's use John Doe. I think I'm using my name pretty too much already. So we have the p tag that says John Doe is a solutions architect or a software engineer. Okay, so this is basically what we have in here. Let's close the div. All right, so that is pretty much okay. We'll call that profile. Right, so let's have our style scopes. Close the style, profile, display, grid, place items center. Okay, so now we have that profile view. We can also go ahead to include maybe a div here that says h1 profile page. All right, let's close that. And of course, add one more div just to close the whole thing. All right, so now we have I think that makes sense, gap 20px. So now we have the profile page or the profile view. Let's go into our router file, and we can simply bring in profile. Okay, so let's bring in profile view, profile. Okay, so we already have view/profile. Let's save. All right, so now we just brought in the profile view. Go back to the app.view. You see, we have the router view here that basically, displays the content that we have in here. Now, one thing you would realize is that if I go ahead and I click on the router item, we are no longer going to see. I mean, of course, we have our navigation, and that's a special part here because so all we have All right. Okay. Back to my, go back to the home page. It takes us back to the home page. We don't have an about page, right? So yes, you can also include that. So let's say new file about the view, right? Template. I think I can just copy what I have here. Control C. Okay. Yeah. So let's say style margin top 5 p.m. Okay, so I can copy this whole guy here into about, paste that. So I have about, change a couple of things from here, about. So this is our website. Okay, we are just having fun. Oh, not gone, not gone. That is fun. All right. So yes, about. Okay, and we have about page. All right, so let's go into our router view. Duplicate this, about view, about. Okay, so now we are going to next we're going to look at how to do some route params. Okay, so about view. All right, so let's just say this is taking us down to about. Let's save that just to verify that that works. When I click on about right here, that should take us to the about view. So we're going to see that we have the about view, right? About page, profile view, and the home page. Hope that makes sense now, okay? Now let's talk about, the params, okay? So yes, when let's move on to, oh, by the way, if you decide to use this other option, you don't necessarily need to import, right? Basically, the import happens here. So this is we call it lazy loaded, pages, or lazy loaded views, right? So it is basically going to load this when you actually click on that page. By default, what we already have in our project is every single route here is loaded already when the page loads for the first time. It loads every single route, waiting for you to click on it before presenting it to you. Depending on the amount of pages you have, that might actually be, a lot, right, to load. So it makes sense that you also, have some lazy loaded, components, right, or lazy loaded pages. So these pages will be loaded at the point when you click, to actually load that view. Okay. Yeah, so let's proceed. Let's come back in here, and we are going to click on dynamic route matching. Okay, so for the dynamic route matching, I'm sure you guys have seen some web pages where you have something like, let's assume we have products. So we can visit a product page, and we can also visit a product sub item, right? Maybe product slash one, right? Giving you the first product on your page, product slash two, and stuff like that. We are going to create that product page. So let's create a new file, products.view, all right? And we are also going to, let's just copy this, Control C. Okay, let's come back to products, paste. All right, so just to change some items here, products. And of course, we have the product page. All right, so we're just going to create a simple product here, just one product. Let's call this H2. I'm simply going to call this item item one. Okay, so let's say this is uh, Gary Park. Now these are our products. Okay, so we have item one, or product one. So when we click on this product, we want to be able to navigate to, let's change this to product, by the way. When we click on this, we want to be able to navigate to a different page, right? That would of course tell us that maybe that's the page where we want to display the details of that product. All right. So let's just have an a tag here, or we can also have the router link as well. So we can have the router link just to show you, from the website to see what we have here. Let's go to the website. So if you take a look at this, this is basically how we're going to, grab that parameter item. We're going to get to that shortly. This is the page, and we need to simply pass in that, we want to render this specific item. Okay, that is what we're going to do. So you can see, there are some examples here. We have, users slash username. So here we have, a param here. It's expecting you to pass in a username, right? At this point, this also expects you to pass in a post ID, right? So when you see the column there, if you can see that clearly, when you see the column there, it shows that that item should be passed, during the execution, right, when you are actually loading that page. All right, this is basically what the path would look like from our end within our routes. Let's just go ahead and create that first. Okay, so if I go into the router view or the router page, we can simply comment on this again. We're not using that for now. Okay, so we're going to have products. Sorry, that should be parts, by the way. Parts. Okay, so we have products. Let's call that products. We have the name of products. Okay, and we have the components of let's say products view. All right, now let's go back to the top just to make sure that we have this in here. Products view, products. All right, so I'm assuming that our component is called products because we probably want to render a lot of products. Okay, two and all that. If I save this item, let's go back to our browser. Now we don't really have a link here taking us to that product, so we can easily go to navigation. All right, so this should take us to products. Okay, so let's save that and refresh this page. All right, so when I refresh this page, now we have products. If I click on that, you see we have product one. We can make product one a link, make it clickable, right? So let's go back into products. We want to make this clickable. How do we do that? We can include, the router link, right? And we have tool. So this is where we actually pass in, product slash, and it shows that we are actually expecting a product, maybe one or two, whatever it is. This is something that requires rendering those products. So let's close router link, right? Hope that makes sense. We have all these items. Let's see if we have an error. So we have router link and we close router link. Yeah, do we have any coming here? Router link. I do not think we have any error. So why are we getting that? Let's go back again. So we have router link to this specific products. Oh, right. So we do have a problem. Now, this div is meant to sit out of that. Yeah, just like this. Okay. So when we click on this, and by the way, you can of course style this, just to make it more obvious that it is clickable. So we can simply say A, and we can say maybe give us a padding of 30 px. We can say give us a background color of yeah. So now we have a product here. So when you click on this product, you see now you have product slash one. But of course, we did not really, create that route just yet. The route that can actually work with that product item. Now it makes sense if you say, oh, I want to actually, render this as a child component, right? Now, what exactly is a child component? So a child component is basically, based on your description, something that will be rendered, within is going to be rendered within that particular, view. I think I just made a mistake. I called it a child component. I meant a child route. Okay, so yes, you are going to be rendering, a particular item, but it's then going to render it within, that child. What is it called? That child view. Okay, so we're going to actually do that right now. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead to see what we can actually do in here. I wanted us to, okay, so in order to actually work with the child components, for this example, I'm going to show you how to use a different component, not a child component, but if you really want to, work with a child component, what you have to do is to define the children of this particular component here, okay? So you just have to say children, right? And you have to pass in the children. You can have multiple children here, okay? So we can say we pass in the parts. Let's just call this maybe like a child, okay? And then the components we're going to pass in, we can define a child component. Now this is just an example. You have to of course define the child component right here, Okay, so depending on where you have that child component already, but we don't really have one. Okay, what I might do if I need child components is to basically, create a folder and call the parents, components the name of the folder, and then I can also add the child components within that particular folder, right within views. Okay, I won't do that on that component just to make it easier for me to, understand. But it's your decision to make. If you have that on that component folder, it doesn't make any big difference. It's just the way you prefer to understand your projects. Okay. For now, we don't really have any. This should look like this. For now, we don't really have any child components. Right. So I'm just going to leave this for now because I want to show you. We'll get back to this maybe in a different session. Right. Let's just show you how to present. If you have a different page where you want to actually present this, right? If you have a different page, you can have a product view page. Okay, you can have a product view page. If that is what you prefer to do, you can have a product view page. In our example, I mentioned that we are going to actually have like a path param, so we can get that path param name or detail, so you can actually see how it works, right? If I want to do that, following what we have seen on the documentation right here, we can actually, grab that this way. Okay, so we can grab that this way. Let's go ahead and grab that. So I'm simply going to create. Let's do this. All right. So I have the parts. That should be products. So maybe I can call that product because it's a single product, right? And then I have the component. I have to simply put in the components here. Let's call it the product view, right? So I have to come back here. By the way, you can of course include the name as well. So the name, let's call that product view. All right, put a comma there. Okay, and we can come back to the top. We already have a product view. I can fix that. So product view is just to show a single product. So I can actually call this product, the former name we actually use. So let's go ahead and fix this. So let's call that product. So product view is what we would use to actually view the product. Okay, so I can simply have product view. Let's save that. Let's come in here and create a new file, call it product.view.view. Okay, so on the products, we render all the products. On product view, we want to display the product. So let's have templates. Close the templates. I don't need a styling for now. I just want to show you how I will grab that product item, okay, within the product view. Let's just add a div, correct, okay, close the div. Okay, now let's come back in this page. You see that what we have here is when we click on that, we expect to have an ID, right? This is the ID we're going to actually grab from the product view page. Okay, so in order to see that in action, when we click on a particular item, we want to go to the product view page. I can just include a text here that says H1 product view, right? Let's just include the text that says, let's see. So we have an error. It says, oh, I think I just have to refresh, and that would probably be gone. All right. So let's come back into products. So when I click on products, so this was expected to show us the product view, but we don't have that showing up just yet. So I think we probably have to check where the problem is coming from. So let's check it out to figure out, where that problem is coming from. So this says products, right? That is wrong. So back to the product page, we use products instead of products. Okay, it's just one product. Let's verify. So you see we have products and not products. All right. So we don't have an S there. Let's come back to the other page, which is the page that shows all the products without the one. So we have all the products. When I click on that, now you see we have product view, right? Let's come back. All the products, click, we have product view. And now we can actually grab that ID. Ideally, on that page, you grab the ID, you make your request to the backend to get that single product. That is what you would do with that ID. So all we can do right now is just render that ID so you can see how to grab the ID, right, on that particular page. Okay, so we have that example on the we have that example right here. This is how you want to grab that particular ID, right? So I can simply copy this let's go back in here, and I'm just going to say, let's put this in an H2, for example, H2. So we simply want to have this particular product rendered here. Now I have an error. I don't know why I am having that error, but I would have to check. So let's say product ID being what we want to render. Let's go back to the page to verify why we're getting that error. Okay, so it's just a random error from our code editor. But as you can see, we're able to grab the ID here. So based on the ID you captured, that is exactly what you are going to use to make your query to your backend, right? So if I have maybe some random figures here, showing that particular ID, if I save this, let's come back to products. Okay, let's click on this. You can see we get the product ID. Now, I hope that makes sense. Now, there are so many other advanced patterns, to learn when working with, routing. Okay, there are other advanced patterns, as you can see. We have not been able to cover every single thing. We have the programmatic navigation, where you probably want to push from JavaScript to a different route or a different, view. You use the router.push command, and you can basically use router.push with the name, or you can use the path, right? You see, you can use the path, or you can use just the name. Okay, that is the benefit of using the name. So if we use the name, we can say router.push to product view. It takes us to product view. We can say router.push, and we use the path instead of the name. Whichever option works for you, that is great. Okay, this is how you push to a particular page or a particular view. All right. So we have a couple of other things, as you can see, some advanced patterns. Working with navigation guards, for example. Navigation guards refer to, they are simply codes you can add when you are basically performing a navigation, action. So, for example, you're trying to route to a page called dashboard. You can add a guard that checks if you are signed in first. If you are not signed in, you can push that particular user back to the login page. If you are signed in, the guard actually tells us, oh, this guy is signed in already. Let's allow him or her passage to that page, right? So that is basically what you do with navigation guards. So you can set navigation guard to say, before we get from a page to a different page, let us try to check for some conditions. Okay, so that is actually used for performing, sign-in checks. So you see right here, we're checking if this user is authenticated. If the user is authenticated, then go ahead. If the user is not authenticated, that's what we have here. Take this person back to the login page, right? So this is exactly what I just explained now. And you can see we can add even more, code to basically help us out with the navigation process. I mean, it makes it easier for you to, implement some kind of features, right? So navigation guides is very, very important. You should know this, you should read up. And if you have any questions so far, while you are practicing and while you are reading this, then yes, we will definitely answer those questions. During our workshops, I will try as much as possible to create an application, right? That would show you some of these examples. We already passed our 1 hour, mark, and I hope you're able to learn a couple of things. Looking at the implementation we did, it was fast, it is rough, but I hope you're able to learn something from this. Okay. Well, if you have any questions for the next 2 minutes, I will take those questions before we end the session. All right. So I just have 10 more people left from YouTube. If you have, okay, so I know this was a lot, right? I know this was a lot, but I wanted to show you, how you can basically work with this, right? Show you in action, okay, how you work with Vue Router. So if you have any questions, please let me know in the chat. All right. I will spend the next 2 minutes waiting for questions before we go ahead to close this session. All right. 2 minutes. Okay, so I don't think we have any questions from what I can see. Yeah, So for those of you that joined and stayed to the end of the session, well done. I'll be expecting to see more questions if you have any on Discord or the WhatsApp group. Do well to ask questions. Call my attention if you have any challenge while trying to implement something. And if I am not available to assist you, we have other moderators that are well familiar with Vue, and they will definitely respond to your questions. All right. Have a wonderful evening and happy coding. Bye.